Hi, this is the intro to my review of the Acebeam X50. There's a longer one that follows that's done inside so you don't get any of this outside noise, but I want to give you a quick intro in case you don't have a lot of time. Very briefly, the X50 is an incredibly bright flashlight, 38 to 40,000 lumens depending on emitter choice, which LEDs you pick. And to give you an idea, that's, well, a high-end smartphone is maybe 100 lumens when you put on the flashlight, maybe. So this is at least 400 high-end smartphones all on flashlight mode right here in the palm of your hand. It is a very, very well-made flashlight. It doesn't make any sound when you shake it. Unlike some, you'll hear battery rattle in a lot of them. You don't hear that at all here. There's no coils, so nothing to shake around. Also, when you turn it on, there is no fan, no whirring noise, no electronic or electric whine. It is absolutely a silent light. So it is a very powerful light that is very quiet in your hand. Does it heat up? Yes. And if it gets too hot, there is a handle attachment. I don't use it. I explain why in the longer review, but just so you know, it goes right here. And one thing I forgot to mention in the review is this is a standard 1/4" 20 tripod mount hole, so you can put all kinds of accessories here if you want to. I don't use it with the handle because for me, it does not get too hot. If you keep it on turbo for a very long time, it will get uncomfortably hot, but on a medium mode, which is actually still pretty bright, it's easily usable for quite a long time. I have no problems with it, but you do have a handle you can attach if you want. It also operates as a power bank. It'll charge things through USB-C from 5 volts up to 20 volts and up to 3 amps up to about 12 volts or so. So it's a pretty decent power bank. You can recharge your equipment if you bring it with you when you're camping. It's not a huge power bank. It's about 46 watt hours. So, you know, it's going to charge your phone a few times. So you can take it overnight or a couple nights, charge up your electronics, also use the flashlight, but it's not going to last you for a week or 2 weeks out in the middle of nowhere, keeping all your electronics running. It's just a nice option to have. In terms of overall appeal to flashlight enthusiasts, this is sort of a grail light. There are lights that are a little bit smaller with a little bit less light, but this really hits all the check boxes. It is very bright, very powerful. I mean, it's not the most powerful, but you have to spend about twice as much to get something a lot more powerful than this. It is incredibly portable. For a light this bright, it's very small. It is very handheld. It is incredibly well made. It has a safety on it so that when you turn it on, it locks the switch. Just a little note, it just locks the switch in whatever position it's in. If the light's off, light stays off. If you have the light on, stays on. So just make sure it's off before you lock it. Nicely, the switch will turn on, more or less activate if you, the lock will activate if you put it in the holster. So it's going to tend to self-safety if you were. So it's actually a very nice feature. And another thing I forgot to mention in the longer review is it's got 7 power modes. It does not have a firmware that you can really modify, so it just comes as it is, but it has ultra low, low, medium 1, medium 2, medium 3, high, and turbo, and they're just really increasing ranges of brightness. Turbo is very bright. It also has strobe, and let me tell you this is a really powerful flashlight. It's kind of floody, which means that you get light everywhere. You don't want to put it on strobe. You just don't. I mean, there may be 1 or 2 times when strobe would make sense in a light ever in history, and I don't think any of them apply to a 40,000 lumen flashlight, which I think it's only a mere 12,000 on strobe, because it's a bad idea. Don't do it. I did try it, and I can verify, even shining elsewhere, it's a bad idea. But anyway, I forgot to mention that. So just if you watch the longer review, keep in mind, don't use strobe. Triple click, don't triple click. But anyway, that's the basics of it. The downsides, which I mentioned in the long review. One, it's expensive. It's $369 US, which is a lot of money. It's outside the budget of a lot of people. But I will say that for a flashlight enthusiast, that's not a lot of money to pay for a light this good with this much power in this size. So it's a reasonable price. It's not a deal, but they're not ripping off either. The big negative of this is the entire body of the flashlight here, the battery pack, the USB charger, the charging electronics are all one piece. If anything goes wrong with any of those, you have to replace the entire thing, and that's $150 US, which is a lot. The reason it's that way is not to rip you off, I don't think. It's because by doing so, they can put a huge amount of power into something this size. Just to give you an idea, this is an Astrolux MF01S. Very, very close to the same size, very close to the same weight. The only real difference in height is due to the longer reflector here. About the same battery capacity. This puts out 1/3 as much light in the same size. The fact that this has everything all tightly integrated means it can put a ton more power into these emitters. So that's what you're paying for, but beware, there is that hidden cost. If anything goes wrong, you've got a large replacement fee to replace this entire bottom. So that's basically where I would end the quick review. Incredibly bright, very powerful, very well-made flashlight that's expensive and has a high replacement cost if something goes wrong. If you can live with the replacement cost and with the initial cost of the flashlight, I think you'll be very happy with it. I've had it for a couple of months. I love it. And what I'm going to show you next is a beam shot comparison I shot last night. And just so you know, the lights in that are the X50 and the the Emisar D18. I keep forgetting which is which. D18, which is about $100 plus the cost of battery, so 120 or so, and it puts out about 14,000 lumens in a very small package. This puts out about 38 to 40,000 lumens, so you know, a much brighter light, but this is still incredibly bright, as you'll see. And the reason I picked this over the MF01S is the beam patterns are very similar in these. So you'll see similar light, but the same color, 5000K, 5000K, similar beam patterns, just a lot more lumens out of this one. So I'm going to segue to that. You're going to see those things at night. You'll get an idea of what you get. And if this is outside your budget, I recommend either this, the Emisar D18, or the Astrolux MF01S as roughly all in $120 or so flashlights that will give you a great deal of joy you get out of this. But with this, by spending, you know, close to it 3 times as much, you get a much brighter flashlight that is arguably even better built, and it just got that cool factor, you know. So I'm going to segue to those, and then we'll move on to the longer review that I recorded yesterday. I just want to give you a quick comparison between 2 flashlights. One is the Emisar D18 in an SST20 5000K version, which runs $99 plus batteries. And I'm going to compare it to the X50 so you get an idea what you get for the extra money. This is the D18 on turbo, and as you can see, it's a very bright light. It really is. It's an awful lot of light. It's 14,000 lumens, but I mean, that's pretty high end, really. It's a bright, floody light that lets you see a lot of stuff very far away. But I do want to point out that in this little amount of time I've had it on, it's gotten very hot. And now we're going to take a look at the X50, also on turbo. This is much, much, much brighter, visibly about twice as bright or close. And the other thing that's important to note is that even though I've had it on for about the same amount of time, it's much less hot in my hands. So even putting out so much light, it doesn't warm up as fast. And if I want to step it down to a medium level, this level is really not unlike what the D18 provides. Let me see if I can put that on turbo. D18 on turbo. This is it at medium. They're both around, you know, 12, 13, 14,000 lumens. But the difference is the X50 can hold this for, I can't quite remember, I think it's something like 7 hours. So you get the same amount of light that the D18 puts out on turbo, and only holds for a little while before it really melts in your hand for hours. And the light really doesn't get that hot. So that's just an idea what you get. Again, this is your turbo on the X50. It's just basically sun in your hand. It's really pretty amazing. I don't know how much of this you can see versus what I can see with the naked eye, but looking down, I can see telephone posts or power posts many hundreds of yards away. They're not going to show up on camera very well, but I can certainly see them. So definitely it's a lot of fun. And what you're getting for your money is that fun. Keep it on turbo long enough though, and it does start to get hot near the top, but the handle is still easily holdable. If you really want to leave it on turbo a long time, just put the actual handle onto it, and you should be able to hold it for quite a while. Anyway, those are some beam shots. Hope they helped with your decision. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Acebeam X50, which is a light from Acebeam. It's an incredibly bright light, and as you can see, it's actually pretty decent sized. It's not too large, not too small, sort of the Goldilocks size for flashlights, very easy to hold. The reason I'm doing this review, which is actually my very first video review of a flashlight, is that I think this is a really interesting flashlight from a reviewer's point of view. In that, well, let me explain that when I watch reviews, there are 3 things I'd like to have answered. 1, what is it? 2, do I want it? And 3, should I get it? And I'm going to start with that second one for you right now. Do you want it? Yes, you want it. It's absolutely a fantastic light, and you do want it, which doesn't mean necessarily you should get it, but you absolutely would love this light. And in fact, you might have noticed that I've got Disney World as my background, and there's a few reasons for that. The first one is that my neighborhood is a lot louder than it used to be when I did a lot of video reviews of different things, and I can't really do one outside anymore. I tried today. The second one is that, like Disney World, this flashlight is incredibly exciting and a lot of fun and something you can really look forward to. And it's just one of those things that just, brings a smile to your face. But the third reason is that, like Disney World, this flashlight is very expensive. So that's probably going to be the crux of the matter when we get down to talking about whether or not you should get it. But let's first talk a little bit more about what it is. As you can see, obviously it's a flashlight. It's very bright. And by very bright, what I mean is that there are 2 emitter choices. Emitters are these LEDs. And one of those choices puts out light at 5000 K temperature, and one does it at 6500 K temperature. And for those of you who don't know, K, or Kelvin, is used in lights to describe how the color of the light is when you see it. And it represents the color a black body would be if it were at that temperature. If you have, for example, the sun is more or less an ideal black body radiator, and it runs around, I think, around 5700 K in broad daylight. Which means that this light, which is the 5000 K version, is a little bit warmer than that. Not a higher Kelvin temperature, but warmer in the sense of closer to candlelight. It's a little more yellow or red, just a little bit. It's kind of like sunlight maybe in the late afternoon. And the other version of this is 6500 K, which is a little bluer, a little closer to fluorescent lights, for example. And some might say harsher, but it really depends on your point of view. I chose the 5000 Kelvin one because I like this color better, the color temperature of the light. But you should know that this one is 38,000 lumens, and the 6500 K version is 40,000 lumens. And that might sound like a big difference. In fact, I mean, it is. It's 2,000 lumens, which is, well, I mean, your typical smartphone is somewhere between 20 and 100 lumens when you put the flashlight on, which so many people use as their flashlight. So this is, between 20 and 100 entire smartphones less bright than the 6500 K version, which sounds like a lot until you realize that to your eyes, a light has to be 4 times brighter to be seen as twice as bright. So when you're using these in practice, if you were to have a 5000 Kelvin one and a 6500 Kelvin one, and you were to look between the two, you would see a difference in the color. It'd look a little yellower, a little bluer. I mean, not really yellow or blue, but that direction. But it wouldn't really seem noticeably brighter or less bright. They're going to come across as effectively the same brightness, and that brightness is extreme. 40,000 lumens, and from now on I'm just going to say it's a 40,000 lumen light. We both know, I mean, 38 or 40,000, but just as a little shorthand, we'll go with 40,000 because it's certainly an option you could pick. 40,000 lumens is a huge amount of light. It is easily 10 times the light most high-end enthusiast lights put out. And just to give you another idea, the brightest light that you can buy, handheld light, realistically, puts out 100,000 lumens, very briefly. It's twice as expensive as this, and it has a built-in fan. So, cool, you can put out 2.5 times as much light, 100,000 lumens, which is going to seem like, I don't know, 50% brighter or so. But when you shine it, instead of just seeing that wonderful, beautiful, bright light, you see it and you hear, vroom, because you got that fan blowing the whole time. And similar high-end flashlights, also much bigger than this, that one is, and the other ones I'm talking about, will have a handle that attaches with a built-in fan. It's called a fandle. And that will also make this loud whirring sound. So sure, you can see the light, but all you hear is the fan. So it's sort of, I don't know, puts a damper on the fun, I guess. This is 40,000 lumens of absolutely silent light. It's really bright, but it makes no sound. I think that's fantastic. And I talked about the fandle. I mean, this does come with a handle, which you can attach to it. But I will tell you that you can use it, and as you can see, it goes on very easily. But you don't really need to. And the reason is that turbo on this, 40,000 lumens is, well, it's the reason you bought it, right? 40,000 lumens, that's a lot. But you don't often need that much light. And you can put this thing on turbo for, you know, a good couple of minutes and still be able to hold it without a problem. If you keep it on too long, it does get really hot. It's not going to burn your hand, but it's going to be uncomfortably hot. So you need the handle in those cases. But in most cases, you really are fine putting it, I mean, medium on this is, I think, around 12 to 14,000 lumens, depending on the emitter you choose. And to put it another way, 12 to 14,000 lumens is a really bright light. This is just staggeringly bright on turbo, but even on medium, it's a very bright light, and it will hold that brightness for a long time without getting too hot. It does get warm, but it doesn't get too hot to hold. And so for me, I tend not to keep the handle on for a couple of reasons. First, I just find the handle is more awkward than just holding it like a flashlight. And second, the thing that I find that I really like about this without the handle is that it fits into the case that you get, and you can close, I'm sorry, the holster, and you can close the strap. That's really nice. When you put the handle on, sorry about the noise, the light only goes into about here, and you can't close this, which means it'll set in there, but it's not very secure. I like the security of the light because, let me explain, when I first got this light, about 2 months ago, I got it. It came in the mail. I'm like very excited. And the first thing I did was I plugged it in. And oh, by the way, it comes with a 65 watt charger, which is a really powerful. You can use this on your laptop. And it will charge this light at up to 35 watts. So it's I think a 46 watt hour battery altogether. So it will charge the entire thing up in less than an hour and a half. That's quite a charger. But anyway, I got the light. I charged it. I put the handle on because, I mean, I figured I had to have it. And I went out at night and I was going to take some beam shots. And I had a little stand with me because I had a couple lights, and I put the light on the stand and I turned around because I didn't put it in the holster because it didn't really stay in. And I turned around and I knocked it off the stand, and it fell onto the only rock in probably 30 feet on the ground. It landed right on the rock, and it broke the glass. And I would tell you, these are very impact resistant. I mean, I'll get to that in a bit. It's a very sturdy flashlight, but I mean, physics being physics, if you drop something this heavy directly onto a rock, onto this glass face, what happens is you end up with, well, you end up with this. You can't really see it, but it's a broken piece of glass. That's what happens. And it took most of the brunt of it, but it also sort of dented the bezel. You can't see it very well, but it's a little banged up, not too bad. So I contacted Acebeam, and for a small fee, I was able to get a whole new bezel and a whole new glass optic. So that's really nice. But I will say that that's why I don't tend to keep the handle on it, and that's why when I'm doing anything other than holding it over my lap, I do tend to put the lanyard on my wrist so that if I accidentally drop the light, it's going to stay on. Just like I said, though, that's not in any way a sign the flashlight's not well built. It's incredibly well built. But any light with this big of a piece of glass that drops full on onto a rock, you're going to have problems. And I also want to say that despite doing that, the inside, the reflector and everything was in perfect shape. Absolutely perfect, flawless, no issues whatsoever. So if you do that, know that you can get a new glass optic. It's close to 70 millimeters, but just a little bit less. It feels like it's about 69.5 millimeters, just in case you want to know, and a couple millimeters thick. And the bezel comes off pretty easily. Well, actually, no, that's not true. I had to get one of those, a couple of those strap wrenches and put it on and twist it off, but the bezel does come off. It is not glued on. It's on very tightly when you get it, which is good. I think it adds to the waterproofing. And just to get to that, this is IP66 rated, which means you can get it wet. You can bring it out in the rain, but you're not going to go diving with it. It's, let's just say it's water resistant, and you don't have to worry about it being out in the rain, but I would not use it a whole lot in thunderstorms for hours. It's, having taken this bezel off, there's no real waterproofing here besides just the tightness of the bezel. So just be aware of that. It's water resistant. And when you're dealing with something this bright and this much power, you probably don't really want to bring it around in thunderstorms anyway. But if you do, it will handle the rain fine. Just don't go swimming with it. A couple other things about the light. Like I said, it's incredibly bright, but it's very well built. No rattle. And part of the reason you've got no rattle is that instead of adding batteries individually to it, what you'll find is that the battery is actually the entire base. This whole unit here is the battery. It's got, I'm going to guess it has 4 18650 cells in it. I don't know that for sure. I think it's a little short to be 21700s and 3 of them, but if you look at the battery capacity, it lines up pretty nicely with 4 18650 cells. Here's the USB charger, and I want to say this also operates as a power bank. You don't even need to have this on. You can just use it this way. The power bank will charge USB-C to USB-C or USB-C to Lightning or whatever, as long as your device will handle a USB-C power port. It will charge. You can charge your iPhone, you can charge your Pixel, you can charge your Samsung, you can charge pretty much any one of your phones. Probably USB-C to micro USB would probably work. I haven't tested it. I've tested the other two and they work fine. But be aware, this is, I mean, it's 46 watt hours, which is a lot, but it's not like a huge amount. It's no different than any other 46 watt hour power bank. You can get those for probably 20 bucks. So it's a really nice feature to be able to use your flashlight to charge other things, but I will tell you that it's probably not the sort of thing that you will do a lot. If you go camping, this will charge your phone up a couple of times, but it's not going to charge it for a week. And if you do charge it 4 or 5 times, you're not going to have much light left in your flashlight. So it's a good emergency thing. It's nice to have around. It's a great option, but it's probably not the reason to get the light. It's just a nice perk. Just like the 65 watt charger is not the reason to get it, but it's really pretty nice as a perk. So overall, very bright light with nice solid construction, no rattling whatsoever, and very nice safety switch here. I like this physical switch, which I will tell you one thing I've learned. I thought this was a lockout to the power. I thought that if this were on, you can't get power to the light and it would prevent it from shining. Not true. What this is a lockout, a physical lockout for the switch, which means that if the light's off, you can't turn it on. But if the light's on, as you can see here, and I put the lock on, I can't turn it off. So just be aware that if you're going to lock the switch, make sure the light's off, because otherwise you're not going to be able to shut it off. I mean, it's not like you would, but just be aware that it's not a lockout to the power, it's a lockout of the switch. And also something I thought was really nice is that because of the way the switch works, if you put it into the holster, that pushing down the light is likely to put the switch on and lock the light out, as opposed to unlocking it. So it's nice that you have to push up to lock it. That's the direction it would be if you put it into a holster. Very nice on that. So overall, what do I think about the light? Well, one other thing I wanted to point out is that when you get it, I'm not a really big unboxer, but it comes in a nice box, nice foam, and you know it's a nice case because it's got magnets. Magnets to hold it closed. So if you wanted to get this as a gift for others or, for yourself, be aware that it comes in a very nice box, which is nice. So that's what it is. Super bright light. What would I compare it to? Well, I've got a couple here that I think are, they're not really true comparisons, just examples. This is an Astrolux MF01S, and this is an Emisar D18. And these two lights with batteries run about $120. The D18 is $99 plus emitter choices plus batteries, so roughly 120 bucks. This one, it's all over the board. You'll get it on AliExpress or Banggood. Who knows what you're going to pay for it with batteries? I think I paid $110 for it with batteries, but I've seen it for $150. I've seen it for $95. It just depends, It's like the stock market. But the idea is that these two lights are each 14,000, 15,000 lumens. So, roughly a third of what the X50 is, but also roughly a third of the cost. The X50 runs about, list price is US $369. And by the way, the price of that battery, if you get just that battery bottom, is US $150. We'll get to that in a second. So roughly for a third the price, you get roughly a third the lumens. What do you gain with that? Well, you can get both these lights for 2/3 the cost of that, which is cool. And you could get 3 of them and have the same amount of lumens for the same price, which is cool. But what do you get with this? 40,000 lumens right in your hand. That's what you get, and that's what you're paying for. So if you can't afford this, the only negative, really the only negative, is cost. It's almost $400, which is an expensive light, and If anything goes wrong with the batteries in here, or if anything goes wrong with your port down here, you're at $150 to get a new one. That's kind of a big downside. I mean, if you want to keep this for a long time, you're almost thinking that you should just order another battery just in case, because by the time these batteries will naturally die, if nothing goes wrong with them, it's going to be 10 years from now. You know, it's going to be a long time, so you're never going to find the battery base. The other thing is realistically, if you wanted to, if you had some expertise, you could open this case up. You could take the batteries out. You'd have to unsolder them. You could solder new ones in. You'd probably be fine. If you're comfortable with soldering batteries, I don't think it'd be a big problem to fix this. If you're not comfortable with that, it would be a big problem. If you're not comfortable with replacing USB-C port, also a big problem. So just be aware that if you get this light, you're looking at a possible future expense of either $150 or paying someone to do it for you if you don't know how to do it, because by the time this is likely to fail in real life, you're probably not going to be able to find this. You know, $150 now, or, you know, unavailable later. So that is one thing. A lot of money to buy, a lot of money to maintain. But 40,000 lumens right in your hand. I'm a flashlight enthusiast, and I can tell you that this brings pure joy when you shine it. And I would love to see things like the Emisar M18. I would love to have one of those. I'd love to be able to shine 100,000 lumens for, you know, 1/10 of a second before it kicks down. But A, I can't really afford that. This was pretty much top of my range. And B, I don't feel like those are practical. This I've been using for 2 months. I mean, even when the glass broke, the piece I showed you had a big wedge out. In reality, it cracked it, but I left it in until I got the replacement, and it worked fine. I didn't put it out in the rain or anything, but it worked fine. So I've been using it for months, and I can tell you that it is just a really practical light. I don't tend to keep it on turbo at all, except when I'm showing it off. But I like that I can. There were a couple of times when I wanted to see something more in my yard and I put it on turbo, and it's like the sun. It's really bright, but it's easily holdable. That's the thing, is it's not the kind of thing where you're pulling out this giant flashlight or this weird, super expensive, loud toy. It's a genuinely usable flashlight. It will be usable in the rain. It has a safety lockout, so you're not going to leave it on. It comes with a nice holster. Oh, that's the other thing, is honestly, Astrolux, if you're watching this, please just cut a notch in these holsters on both sides so that if I put the handle on, I can set the flashlight in and go all the way down. That would be awesome. You know, for almost $400, I would love to have the holster just have a notch in it so I can safely hold the flashlight in with a handle. Like I said, you don't really need the handle, but it's kind of nice. You know, I mean, it feels a little better to be able to sweep it around like that, but I don't really care. I use this like a flashlight, and it is eminently holdable. And frankly, with my hands, I like this larger size. I like the larger size. I like the indents on the fins. I can put my thumb in there if I need to. If the flashlight gets really hot, I can hold it down here. It's not a problem. You've got other spaces here if you want to put lanyards or some other mounting if you'd like. If you want, you can remove this lanyard here. It comes off pretty easily. It goes back on super easily, unlike other lights that I've seen. It's very easy to replace the lanyard. And it's just eminently practical. I mean, it's just a nice size. So for that number 3, should you get it? I mean, we've already addressed what it is. It's a really bright light, portable, nice. And whether you want it, yeah, I mean, like Disney World, yes, you do want it. Should you get it? Depends on what your budget is. If you're a true flashlight enthusiast and this is your hobby and you spend money on flashlights, $369 is not an enormous amount of money for something this bright. It's actually pretty reasonable. It's halfway between, you know, well, free and the super high-end, really bright lights. Not high-end in terms of craftsman one-offs and all that. You can spend thousands of dollars on flashlights, but the Emisar M18, which is the current king at 100,000 lumens, is about twice the cost of this. But this is, I would say, far more than twice as useful. This is the kind of thing you can carry with you. This is the kind of thing that you will actually use. This is the kind of thing that you're not going to have to worry about deafening people around you when you turn it on because of the giant whirring fan, which if you watch any review and you see them turn it on, you hear the fan. If you don't hear the fan, you've got your computer on mute. This, when you turn it on, here, let me put it on turbo. Yeah, it kind of blows out the green screen. But when it's on turbo, oh, look at that. There's no sound. Done. So There we go. Green screen is returned. Focus back on the camera. But at 40,000 lumens, this is absolutely going to come back to you. Actually, I'm sorry, it's going to be incredibly usable to you. So all in all, if you can afford it, get it. Do you want it? Yes. And what is it? It's just a really fun, incredibly bright flashlight. Hi, we're at a local waterway. I just want to give you some example of what the difference in lumens will bring you. I'm going to start with the least amount that I've got here, which is the Sofirn SD01 Pro Diving light. And as you can see here, a lot of light, shines pretty nicely, fair bit of spread. Actually, very usable amount of light. Let's now take a look at the Sofirn Q8 Pro, which is 1,000 more lumens. And honestly, from my point of view, I'm not sure what the camera shows. This is the S8 Pro. This is the Sofirn diving light. It does put out, the Pro puts out, I'm sorry, the 8 puts out, I'm sorry, the Q8 Pro puts a little bit more out, but not appreciably different. It's about the same amount of light and about the same quality light. Now we're going to move up to a couple of bigger flutters. What we're going to see here, first of all, is the Emisar D18, which puts out on turbo around 14,000 lumens with this emitter. It's a lot of light. You see it's flooding things pretty nicely. And a very similar light is the Astrolux MF01S, which is supposed to be 1,000 more, but you're going to see it's a bit throwier. It's a little brighter right in front, less on the side. D18 is a little bit floodier. It's putting out about the same amount of light, but it's spread a little bit more. And both are usable lights. Both can see pretty far. The MF01S goes a little further, but I can't see the size as much. The D18, I can see the sides a lot better. I can't see quite as far with it. And now we're going to bring out the Astrolux, which I think you'll see puts out a bit more than both of them. So what we have now, and I've been shining this for a while, it's nice and warm. Hopefully it's not so warm it's going to step down. But here we have, the Acebeam X50. And as you can see here, maybe you can't, maybe it doesn't show up on video as much, but this is just a huge amount of light, very far, and it's all over. It's just, it's enabling me to see anywhere I want to look. Off to the sides, I can see down at my feet if I'm not pointing anywhere near it. Trees on the other side are very bright. I'm going to bring up the Sofirn just as an example to show you of what it looks like. This is it. This is 11,000 lumens. It's pretty bright, but it's not as bright as this. This is showing a lot more. And I will tell you that even though this is on, I've been using this light a lot. It's not stepping down, it's not stepping down much, and it's also not very hot in my hands. It's warm, and I can feel it getting hotter now that it's been on turbo, but it is starting to step down a bit due to the temperature, but I don't have a handle on. I can still hold it quite nicely. The other lights, when I put it on this long, do actually get much hotter, much faster. So I would say what you're getting with this light is a light that's going to hold a higher beam, or a stronger beam longer, and get less hot.